So yo, ancient literature dude, back to talk with you once again, or ramble, like I usually do. And this week I've been thinking about old video stores, right? I'm sure that some of you remember them. Some of you probably were too young to really have it be a thing in your life. But for people like me who maybe grew up in the 80s or beyond that, uh, especially growing up, we probably tend to remember it pretty fondly as a place that we would go as a family. You know, your parents maybe would get off of work at the end of a week or whatever and take you up to the video store, and you would have a chance to look through all these incredible movies and even video games, pick out what you want, and come back home and kind of enjoy it as a family. And uh, that's one of the things that I kind of miss about it. We still, of course, have movies and we have streaming services, and there are ways to now sit down and check out what you might want to watch and enjoy as a family. So I'm sure that there's still that element, but uh, I think there's something different about actually going out, physically to a store, uh, being able to look around and see what you're interested in and pick it out as a family, because there was more of a community element. You met people. You can maybe talk about, oh wow, look at this new uh, fantasy movie that's coming out, or this new video game series or whatever, that we don't quite tend to have now. uh, Even with things like Redbox or certainly with the streaming services. So there was that element. One of the other things that I really miss about the video stores was the visual component, the box art. And as an example of that, we had two major video stores growing up where I lived in a small town in Louisiana. The closest one was Videorama, and uh, it tended to be a little bit more affordable. The selection maybe wasn't as good, but it was right down the road. We could actually walk to it. Later in life, my sister and I actually did. And my friends and I would occasionally walk up there. And then we had a more upscale one called Movie Land Video, and this is what the boxes looked like when you rented them. Uh, but it had a better selection, and was a little bit pricier. But when you actually went into the store and looked at these things, they looked amazing, right? I mean, look at this thing. This is this random freaking movie, from the mid-century, the Day of the Triffids, and this thing, it looks like something out of H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, that monster is just incredible, and that's just something that I found still, hanging on my shelf. But I remember as a kid going down the horror aisle in particular and just being kind of transfixed. I was probably traumatized, but I loved that stuff. I mean, some of the imagery was just gruesome, and they really did a good job of uh, scaring the crap out of you, first of all, with the cover art, but making the concept look interesting and memorable. Because I still remember it to this day. I probably still have nightmares about some of them. But you had things like that, and you had things like the Hobbit, right? The Rankin Bass Hobbit, and just look at that dude. It looks like an Arthur Rackham painting or something. I mean, it's really beautifully illustrated. It gives you a sense of what the movie's going to be about. What sane person who was kind of even remotely interested in fantasy or elves or orcs or halflings or whatever else could look at that and not want to check that out and rent it. And that's something that I think is missing. But for me, as a kind of a nostalgic person, someone that spends a lot of time reminiscing about the past, probably the biggest thing is just the sheer element of physically being able to interact with something and even potentially own it. Especially when, as these stores did, they inevitably went out of business. I still have, to this day, the copy of Mega Man 2 that I rented and played growing up. I don't know if you can see it. The Videorama sticker is still on it. When they finally went out of business and sold off, I picked it up. And that was very important to me because, in my mind, this isn't just any copy of Mega Man 2. This is the copy of the game that I played growing up. And, it's one of my most treasured possessions. I mean, I wouldn't give it up for the world. And I know a lot of people don't feel that way, especially now when things are becoming more digital and the physical copies are kind of being phased out. I'm still a crazy old person and I still have CDs and things like that. So, you know, they might have to institutionalize me at some point. I don't know. But as you can probably tell from what you can see in my room, I am a bit of a hoarder. Like I said, I'm intensely nostalgic. I have trouble letting go of things. So being able to just physically own something is very important to me. So anyway, yeah. After my long diatribe there, I guess I was just wondering if any of you feel the same. I mean, am I totally crazy, or is there something lost of that whole kind of community experience of going to a video store, getting to kind of interact with people? Maybe it's just 80s nostalgia. Maybe it's just sentimentalism, but I really miss it, and I still have very fond memories of it. So if you have any, strong thoughts or thoughts, otherwise about it, please let me know. And, in any event, I just hope you're doing well as usual, and I will talk to you later.